Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me here in Oval Window Garage. Today we're going to get back to Hubert's engine build. And if you guys haven't been here and you're not familiar with who Hubert is, well, this is Hubert, and this is his power plant. Hubert is my daughter's Emily's 63 Volkswagen Beetle, and we've been basically restoring them, hopefully giving him another chance at the road and life at being a Beetle. Not just any old Beetle, kind of a high performance hot VW. What we're going to talk about today is induction. Which way should we go with Hubert's build? I've got a couple examples of carburetors here, and if you guys aren't familiar with Weber carburetors, I'm going to kind of give you a little reference to what the difference is between an IDF and an IDA, and then we'll kind of show you which route we are going. So hang in there and let me get set up. So I got a couple examples of carburetors here on the workbench, so let's take a look at them. This here is a fine example of what an IDF carburetor looks like. And this is the well sought after Weber IDA. This carburetor is what I actually ran on Simon back in the day when I was running NA. And I tell you what, there's still nothing better than the sound than dual 48mm IDAs on a stroker engine. It's just music to the ears. And IDFs are kind of really the more popular choice. And I believe the reason is because, you know, they do fit in the engine compartment a lot better than the IDAs. A lot of times you got to make room for these suckers to fit. But the performance difference between the two, I don't know. Everybody always chooses the IDAs. This is a old carb I got. It didn't work, so it was replaced. And actually, it's kind of a shame because it looks like it's in really good shape. But I had problems with these things in the past where like the idle circuits just don't work. I don't know if they just don't get them drilled out properly or what. But the main trouble with the IDF is, like I mentioned earlier, they fit in the engine compartment really well. But it's a bugger to change spark plugs whenever you have to change spark plugs, or even just kind of simply check spark plugs for tuning reasons. And your idle jets are located right here, which if that was in the car would sit here, your fan shroud would be here, and your inner wheel well or firewall, whatever you want to call it, it's right here. And there's no way to get to these suckers without like putting a window in there. And one of the things that these IDFs are prone for are plugged idle jets. And it doesn't take much, you know, have you ever seen an idle jet? They are teeny tiny and the holes are teeny tiny. It doesn't take much to obstruct them. Now the IDAs, as you can see here, let's get a size difference. Alright, it's just a much bigger carb all in general. The IDF here is a 44mm, where this is a 48mm. So of course you're going to get a lot more airflow. These are basically same things they used to run back in the day on like the old Shelby Cobras, except for instead of 2, they'd have 4 all stacked up on here. And it's kind of crazy thinking that this is a much bigger carburetor. Why would working on spark plugs be much easier? I don't know if it's just because they're up and kind of out of the way and you can get your hands in there, but I tell you what, I'd rather do a spark plug change on an engine in a Beetle with dual IDAs than a dual IDFs. And the other nice thing is your jet stacks, both your main jets and your idle jets are right on top. So they're easy to get at when they're in the engine compartment. But for some reason, I don't know why, but I mean, you do get plugged idle jets with these, but for some reason it's just not as bad as with the IDFs. Now this ought to be a little hint on which route we're going. These are, of course, Empi, as you can see the package labeled, street and off-road parts by Empi USA. There's our set of IDA manifolds. Not just any old IDAs, but they're based on the big beefy ones. So there's plenty of room for porting. Well, let's open these up and take a closer look and see what actually comes with the kit. First in, speed equipment for VWs. Now what I'm seeing here is two great examples of IDF manifolds. These are the taller versions. And like I stated before, they got plenty of room for doing any type of port work that you may need. Now, depending on what heads, you're definitely going to have to match port these to whatever head you're going to be using. So 2 of those and hardware kit. We'll lay out the hardware kit here so you can see what comes with it. Got the hardware all laid out, and I'm liking what I see here. We've got, of course, your 2 intake manifold gaskets. I don't know if I'm exactly a big fan of these. I really can't criticize them because I've never run this style. I've always run the ones that are kind of made out of this material, but these will work nice here. These are will go in between the carbs and the manifolds, your gasket tops. We've got 4 mounting hardware for the manifolds to the heads. These are nice because they fit in tight places, but I'll probably wind up replacing these. Replacing these with more of the 12-point nuts, which are just as good. These are brass and they have a tendency to round out easier. I've used them in the past. I mean, they do work really well. I'm not going to criticize those either. Just my personal preference. Of course, you got 8 studs, so you can mount your carburetors to your manifolds. And then what I really do like to see is they actually installed these. I call them a wave washer, but these are more of a, I think the actual term of these is called a spring washer. That's kind of exactly what the Volkswagen factory used on a lot of their hardware for a locking nut. And I really do like to see that those are in the kit. And then of course, they got the nice Empi logo stamped on them. Yeah, that's a really nice looking set of manifolds. And I'm really happy to have them. Now, if you guys have noticed, there's a box sitting here. This actually is, or what induction we are actually going to use. So let's get these opened up. All right, what's in the box? Something great. Always greatness in a box. These are actually a set of throttle bodies in the shape of an IDA with built-in injector bongs and a fuel rail. Yeah, so it seemed like back in the day, the majority of the throttle bodies were all based on an IDF. So I am really excited that you now have the option to use an IDA manifold. And these here were an eBay purchase. And I did notice, I did some research on them, that they make a shorter model and a taller model. And the only ones that were available on eBay were the shorter models. So I figured fitting in the engine compartment, they might fit just a little bit better. Speaking of fitting, one of the things I want to try to see is if these things actually fit on an IDA manifold. Plus, I need to know about the velocity stacks, so I got to try fitting velocity stacks and the linkage, of course, because we're going to have to operate that rum rum rum. So this kit includes 2 throttle bodies. Let's get the other one out. Some hardware. We'll go over that in a minute. There's the other throttle body. All right, yeah, so the kit includes the 2 throttle bodies. Yeah, looks like another arm with spring. It's the mounting hardware. The mounting hardware probably for these top screws here. A throttle positioning sensor with a wiring harness. And, and another arm. Oh, and some O-ring seals. So yeah, you can put instead of using the top gasket on here, you can actually run an O-ring seal if you prefer. So yeah, let's see if this thing fits on the manifolds. All right, flip it over, the moment of truth. Voila. Yep, there we go. Fits nicely. And what I am liking is the stud kit that came with the Empi manifolds are really close to the size they need to be. They don't stick out the bottom, and when you put the nut on, they don't stick out the top much, and that's something that I really like to see. I don't like to see a whole bunch of stud left over. There's no sense in using more than you need. So yeah, basically the plan is going to be for, as you see, EFI. It only has a Megasquirt 2, something that we have purchased, and we are going to basically upgrade it to the MS3 because there's just so much more options, and it's easier to wire stuff like this in. So that is the plan. Will it be turbocharged? Not at first. Emily's got to learn to drive the car and tune the car, and then, or maybe in the future, turbocharging will be an option. But yeah, first EFI, and probably we'll have a flex fuel sensor on it so we can burn some corn. You know, bugs, they like to eat corn. But yeah, I don't think I've got engine size on this. Emily's engine is going to be a 2110, but it is going to be built differently than most 2110s. It's going to be 94 millimeter pistons with a 76 millimeter crank, where the other option, the more popular way to build a 2110, is with the 90.5 millimeter pistons and an 82 millimeter crank. So yeah, let's just look and see if the velocity stacks and the linkage fit on these things. It's going to take a little investigation to see if this type of crossbar linkage, the CB one, is going to work with the throttle bodies. But there's plenty of choices of linkages that we have to choose from. That's not necessary right now. Yeah, let's double check to make sure that the throttle plates look the same size, the holes, which they do. Now the mounting base does seem to be a little thinner than the actual carburetor. So one thing that you'll have to use caution when you do bolt these down. I mean, you don't have to put Arnold Schwarzenegger on them to tighten them down. They just got to be snug. I'm not really sure what the factory recommendation is. Oh. I gotta do a little research. There is a port here. I'm not sure if that's just for a balancing or if that's where I'm actually going to get my vacuum signal. Take a closer look at these. Maybe if somebody out there knows. But there's a stud here and a couple of small holes in the bottom. But yeah, there's a couple of small ports. This one, of course, is going to be blocked off with a gasket, but there's one underneath there, inside there, right next to the injector boss. But what I was worried about was a vacuum signal. Since we're going to be doing EFI, we're going to need a vacuum signal so the fuel table will know where to go and how to adjust the fuel settings for the injectors. All that computer laptop science, and I'm still learning. I know there is a way around that. I talked with Prescott Phillips. He's actually got a race car that he runs, a Mega Squirt. I think it's running a Mega Squirt 2 on that. And he was saying that he doesn't use the VE table. He just goes by throttle positioning and RPM for his tuning on that. So there is a way around that, but I prefer for a driving situation to actually go by a vacuum signal. The other thing I'm probably going to have to see if I can do, I don't know if there's much air to thread in there. I usually use the Army Navy fittings, the A&N fittings, which would require some drilling and tapping and emboss, but these fuel rails are not really that thick. We may have to try just the height or the actual fuel pressure hose clamps on this thing, unless I can figure out a different way of mounting a hose to that. There might be, I don't know. It would take a little extra caution to drill and tap that for a fitting. But yeah, I'm going to take top off this IDA over here and see if the velocity stacks are going to fit in this or fit on this, and look and see if the linkage for the throttle will work on this. Alright, bad news. The velocity stacks from an IDA are not going to work, so I'm hoping the IDF ones will. I don't have a velocity stack for an IDF, but I do have this cover, which should be the same bolt pattern. It happens to line up. So I'm assuming that these will take the IDF velocity stacks. The other thing I discovered is this linkage that's on the IDAs is not going to work. So yeah, we have to come up with a different linkage, and I almost think I got to quiz Chuck Fryer, because he had like the bell crank one I think he was using. on his engine with his IDAs. Pick his brain on that and see if he likes it and find out where he got it from. Like I said, there's several different choices of different types of linkages. Yeah, but this should be an interesting project. Kind of the reason choosing to actually go straight to full fuel injection is because Emily no longer lives here with us. She got a big person job and moved out of state. So I'm kind of hoping to have this all set up to where she doesn't have any problems, and if she does, hopefully it's something I can help her out with over the phone, or the trip to go see her is always welcoming. But yeah, the original plan was to go fuel injection computer, but just run the ignition system at first and play with the IDAs. I was kind of hoping, to give her an idea how carburetors actually work, so she kind of understand how fuel injection works, because they do go hand in hand. You just use a different tool to adjust them with. Somebody mentioned that actually I think it was Sam from the old Cletus show there. He was mentioning in a recent interview that they still tune cars, they just tune them differently. Back in the old days, people would run down the racetrack and then they'd open their hoods up and make changes. They don't do that anymore. They run down the racetrack and open up their laptop and make changes. So yeah, it's just the same thing, just a different tool. But yeah, we'll say that I do miss running these things. They're actually, like I said, really easy to work on with having the jet stacks on top, and fun to play with, and a really good learning tool. And maybe someday, I will build another NA engine, pull them out of retirement, strap these suckers back on, and have some fun with them. But yeah, that'll be way in the future. I'm still having fun with Simon and his fuel injection, and hopefully running that number here in the near future. I do have one more race coming up this year, and it is the Eurofest, formerly known as the Bug Run, and that takes place I believe October 6th. This is 2024, down at the beautiful Martin 131. I don't know if I'm going to actually participate in the racing or just do the fun runs and concentrate on tuning Simon to run the number I'm hoping to run. If I can get the launch down and maybe make some changes and get the boost up a little bit, I think I'll be there. Cross my fingers and wish me luck. Until next time, keep shifting those gears, keep cruising, and always enjoy the ride. Let's get out of here. Come on, look at that. Doesn't that just look cool? These things fit really well on these manifolds. If you guys are interested in these Empi products or any other Empi products, please be sure to get a hold of your local Empi dealer. I can't wait to hear these things run.